yeah, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Getting nippy out there. Love that weather. All right, if you like the videos, don't forget to like them, share them far and wide. And of course, if you are on YouTube, hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. On Rumble, you don't have to do that. So if you'd be so kind to mosey on over there and also subscribe over at Rumble, give the video a like. It very much helps. All those metrics help. But of course, the best place to follow us, the best place to support us is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. Locals, the crosstab for the Christmas poll is separate until Friday, and you will get it in a little bit, basically when we're done. All right. I got a new little poll graphic for the Christmas poll too. Check it out. That's a whole lot of Christmas, isn't it? Love it. That's the Christmas poll graphic for the foreseeable future. Until we tweak it, maybe. I don't know. Every year, I saw that and I said, now that's a whole lot of holly jolly. And I'm loving it. All right, so again, it covers everything. Get a nice little backdrop nativity set hanging from the garland, the star on top of the tree, the Star of Bethlehem. Nice little flickering candle to remind me of the man who invented Christmas. Charles Dickens, of course, I'm talking about. And the hat tip to the both green, red, and white color patterns that deserve their place in history. And you'll find out why. Again, don't forget to like the videos if you like them, share them far and wide. I got some clips I want to play. Let's deal first before we get to the polling. And I imagine there'll be a lot of questions about this today, and it's not a Q&A day. So, Friday we'll all go over the Christmas poll and then leave Q&A time. And I figured that would be the best time to do it because we're headed right into the holiday. And over the weekend, no one's really going to care. So not that no one's going to care. People are going to be busy. I myself am Italian. The weekend is big deal. There's a lot to do. So with that in mind, I figured we would do the Christmas poll, try to be light going into that final weekend, this final weekend before Christmas Day. And we all try to take a little bit of a break and enjoy a little bit of time with our family and friends, apparently 90+% of us, and be a little nicer to each other, be a little bit kinder to each other, think more about our duty to fellow man, right? We'll talk about that more on Friday. Probably play the clip from Linus and everything. In the meantime, we have to deal with the ugly today. Listen, first of all, we're not there yet. So you get any messages talking about, let me get in this group text, and they're like, we got to take up arms, man. I would get out of that group chat text. All right. I guarantee you the Federal Bureau of Criminal Organization, the Federal Bureau of Investigation will be all over these group chats trying to incite people, trying to entrap people into doing something crazy. I do agree with some of the people that I'm going to play some clips with if I get the time. And time blows by quick, and we have a lot of polling that I want to talk about. But if I have the time, let me just say I agree with people like Jonathan Turley that this country is a powder keg. I think RFK is dead on that. This country will become ungovernable when we talk in a little bit, which we're going to use to kind of like jump into the national poll. When you look at the Trump or bust vote this month, when we started this, folks, the Trump or bust vote was like 12-13%, which was already something that we were lamenting because of how significant it was. If Donald Trump's not on the ballot and 12-13% of his people stay home, Joe Biden is reelected easily. We're at a point now where the Trump or bust vote is more than 4 in 10. The Trump or bust vote is so high, and because he's leading by so much, he's pulled the entire share of the Republican Party who says they'll either not vote or write his name on top of the ballot. And we'll get into this more in a second. I had some guy on social media react to that finding and say, you idiots, you're wasting your vote. For a state of Colorado, for instance, has already said they won't count write-in votes for Donald Trump. They don't care if they count them or not. They're making a statement. You understand? You already lost anyway if he's not on the ballot. Look, it's friggin' December 20th. It's time to have a real discussion here. I understand there's a primary still going on, but is there? Is there? Really? If Donald Trump is not on that ballot, Joe Biden is going to be reelected. It's that simple. I don't really care if that hurts your feelings at this point. We're one Supreme Court vote. We're a one vote SCOTUS ruling, a one vote majority SCOTUS decision away from authoritarianism in this country. And I'm supposed to care about people's feelings. I just don't have any time for that. I really don't. All right, so let's play clip one first. When this happened, this was a layup. A layup. Just like the Alvin Bragg indictment was a layup. If you are running for the Republican nomination right now, there is only one answer to this and one very, very easy, quick answer. And the truth is, Charlie Kirk, I saw his response, which was quick, and he said, look, enough is enough. They may be doing this for this reason. People twist themselves in these pretzels, which I'm going to show you in one clip, to try to come up with this crazy logic. There is no logic. They're scared of Donald Trump being reelected. They think they're going to lose, and they're doing everything in their power to get him off the ballot because they can't beat him fair and square. They hope in the meantime that they incite you to create some kind of act of violence so they could squash any kind of resistance in its crib. They want to incite you to do something now before it gets organized. So let's say they did do that. And let's entertain like Tim Pool's scenario. There would be time for a real resistance to get organized. They don't want that to happen. They want to do something like this because they really want to keep them off the ballot and then try to draw people out. That's what they want to do. Like they did with January 6th. They drew people out and then sat in the crowd. Apparently, somebody who is the number two of one of the presidential campaigns, her lawyer. I mean, what the hell is it's unbelievable. Nothing surprises me anymore. But there was one response from presidential candidates about this. If you still want to run, Charlie Kirk is right. He says the primary's over. Get out. At this point, you're tacitly endorsing this. And the truth is, they're not tacitly endorsing anything, with the exception of Vivek Ramaswamy. I think it's very clear that the other candidates running for president had always banked on this, and it's not clear. I'm not making an assumption. I know this from talking to people who work for them and talking to their donors. They have lied to people for months. They hoped the indictments would hurt Donald Trump. They hoped the indictments would be used as a pretext to remove him from the ballot. They hoped all of this stuff would ruin him, crush him, derail his candidacy. They never had any real shot of beating him at the ballot box. So they wanted to do it. Was always when donors said, okay, Jeffro, okay, Jeff, okay, Ron, okay, Genera. When that doesn't work and you're still losing, then what? Because they would say, let's show you some polling data. Look at the governor's favorability ratings. He has such a room to grow. And, people, a majority of this was a big failure, a big misread of the room. A majority of Republican voters are ready to move on from Donald Trump. Look, I can show you this right here. See it right here. And of course, it was completely misreading statistics. It was statistically incompetent, and the argument was incoherent, but it didn't matter. It might have sounded good to some donors because, frankly, Steve Bannon's right about them. They may be able to do their own job, but when it comes to reading the political room, they are dumb. So they get in front of all these people like Jeff Rowe, and they're real impressed with Ron and Casey and all these other people, and they hear them out, and they spend millions of dollars. Cerno, another great take, 200 million flushed down the toilet. If you think Ron DeSantis could win a general election after all of these months, you're a fool. I don't know what else to tell you. Not only what the data tells us, not only the Trump or bust, let's even pretend the Trump or bust would come out for him. He takes 3 days to respond to something. This guy is not even on the court anymore. He's out to lunch. When he went to take this layup, did he hurt his back or something? Is that why it took him 10 hours to respond to this? And then when he did respond, it was pathetic. Here's the correct response to what happened. And you don't need to go meet with your political consultants, do a snap poll. Get out of here. This is a no-brainer. And if you don't know that, you shouldn't be president of the United States.
They have just tried to bar President Trump from the Colorado ballot using an unconstitutional maneuver that is a bastardization of the 14th Amendment to our U.S. Constitution. This was a provision, Section 3, that was designed to bar Confederate members, people who switched to the Confederacy, from actually being able to serve. That's very different than what's at issue here, to say the least. This is a hollowed out husk of what the country was built on. The basic principle that we, the people, select our leadership, not the unelected elite class in the back of palace halls. That's old world Europe, not the United States. That's why I'm making a pledge today that I will withdraw, I pledge to withdraw from the Colorado GOP primary ballot unless and until Trump's name is restored. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie and Nikki Haley do the same thing, or else these Republicans are simply complicit in this unconstitutional attack on the way we conduct our constitutional republic. I refuse to be complicit in that. I think what they're doing is wrong, and I think it's up to Republicans to step up and stand up with a spine for our country's future. That's really what's at stake, whether we, the people, actually have a say in deciding who leads this country. Yes, it would be easier for other Republicans like me who are running in this race to say, hey, if Trump is sidelined, there's our opportunity. No doubt other candidates are probably privately celebrating with their corporate sponsors. That's not the right thing to do. I think the most useful thing that every GOP candidate can do right now is to join me in that pledge. I'll say that I will withdraw from that Colorado GOP primary ballot until Trump's name is restored. This belongs to the people, not to the unelected Democratic cabal of judges in Colorado or any other state. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley and Chris Christie do the same thing, or else they're complicit in what this security state is trying to do to shut down Trump. I stand by that, and I expect them to do the right thing.
All right, now, first, let's take this in a couple of parts. Number one, they are complicit. Okay, we can drop the freaking act now. They are complicit. The answer to the question that I posed before running that clip, well, what happens when all that doesn't work, Jeff? What happens when all that doesn't work, Genera? Was, well, he's going to be thrown off the ballot anyway. He's going to be charged, and that's going to hurt him. He's going to be politically dead in the water, and that's it. Well, that didn't happen. That hasn't happened. That's not going to happen. This is going to help him, in case you haven't been paying attention. This will help him. Going to Twitter with your hot takes like, didn't I tell you 6 months ago this would happen? Yes, Steve, we all knew that you were celebrating with donors and hoping this would happen, that this was your strategy. We know that, Steve. You're missing the bigger picture. And by the way, if it was up to you and you helped and Hillary Clinton was elected, by the way, with your friends at MSNBC that you didn't want to make enemies with, they're such good people. Remember, if that happened, that one vote majority ruling away from tyranny wouldn't even be protecting us right now. The Supreme Court would be 7-2 liberal, and they would uphold this kind of judicial activism and tyranny. So park your hot takes, bro. Nobody gives a damn. They are complicit. That's number one. Immediately, the Colorado Republican Party answered Vivek in his tweet when he posted that video, and they said, you won't have to remove your name from the ballot because we will dump the primary system and go to a caucus if this is allowed to stand. I'm going to leave the law to the lawyers, folks. I will deal with the political impact. I have my views on the law. I think it's very clear. I think you don't need to be a lawyer to read it. They left the office of the president off for a reason. This had to do with Confederacy issues, and it is a federal issue. It has nothing to do with the state. You don't have to go to law school, 3 years of useless law school in order to determine that. You just need a sound understanding of the principles of the country, the principles that were in the founding, and then what happened during the Civil War, and how we dealt with that as a country in Reformation and all of that, right? The problem is the people who advocate for using this think you are an insurrectionist, think Donald Trump is an insurrection. He hasn't been charged with leading insurrection. Now, Jack Smith may, in order to help this in order to help this ruling stand. He may charge him with aiding and abetting. I think he may. Look, these people are crazy lunatics and they are dangerous. I don't care if you have a D after your last name, you have an R after your last name, you have an I after your last name, an L, a freaking G. I don't give a damn. If this was Bernie Sanders and Republicans were doing this to Bernie Sanders, I'd be irate like I am now. And frankly, all these people are like, is this really your job as a pollster to speak up? You're damn right it is. I speak to people every single day. If it's not our job to relay what you're hearing from them and to defend them, then what is your job, man? What is your job? What role do you play? If Mitch McConnell was leading, because he hated Barack Obama, if he was leading an effort against Barack Obama to keep him off the ballot for ridiculous reasons like this, without going through a little phrase they use in the federal language, by the way, due process, then I would be just as irate as I am now. It doesn't matter who it is. This is about your right to decide who the president is and who isn't. The executive branch in this government now. We do not have enumerated powers anymore, not in practice. We don't have separation. This is a government that is dominated by a dynamic and way too powerful executive branch with unelected deep state bureaucrats that don't think that your will is sovereign. They don't believe that anymore. And they're willing to use whatever tools necessary. I'm going to show you that in a second. They're openly stating it when they're talking to each other on social media. They openly state it when they don't think anyone's looking. When they know they can rely on the Washington Post and the New York Times to ignore those tweets. But they don't care about due process anymore. Listen to MSNBC.
To the Republican candidate's argument that this
Steve's good friends and good people over at MSNBC, that it wasn't worth making enemies over to fight Hillary Clinton and to support Donald Trump in 2016. Those people at MSNBC, who would later, by the way, provoke a nutcase to take a firearm and shoot at congressional Republicans who were practicing for a charity baseball game, almost kill the House Majority Whip. Those good people.
To the Republican candidate's argument that the voters should have the say and not the courts.
Why are you standing with Confederates who betrayed this country? And this is what they're standing with, is the spirit of those Confederates rather than the Americans who came together after a long and brutal civil war that was fought to keep the Union together, and clearly saw a threat.
What is Mara Gay talking about? What is she talking about? She's an idiot, an airhead, has no idea what she's talking about. She's just a rabid ideologue who wants to say things to try to make it fit into this crazy little puzzle she's creating in her stupid little mind that's filled with nothing. All right. She's a moron. The language is very clear. Again, you do not have to be a lawyer. He's not a Confederate, you stupid stooge. This is unbelievable. He hasn't even been charged with anything like that. And even if he was, there would still be the question about why did they leave out the office of the president? If they wanted it to apply to the office of the president, they would have written it down. Were they paying chest loads of gold for each letter in ink? This is insane. She can't answer the question about why her and her party, who constantly and incessantly go on and on about protecting democracy, don't appear to actually believe in democracy, which is a faux word anyway, because we're not a democracy. They've done their best to chip away at the principles of a republic, lower R. And by the way, what's the difference We're just talking about it before, the separation of power. You do not vest power in one body. Periclean democracy shows you what happens when you do that. Our founders were smarter than that airhead nitwit, and they decided to separate powers in this country. Voters got some, state legislators got some, members of legislatures federally got some. That's what happened. The courts got some. That's how it goes. You do not give the power to, and that goes for the voters. Yes, the voter is sovereign in this country, but the power is dispersed so nobody can abuse it. We have violated those principles for decades and decades and decades now. And little by little, the 17th Amendment, on and on and on. We have destroyed that. And now we have lent ourselves to be, we have backed ourselves in a position where some schmuck who is just as dumb as that idiot, because they have a black robe on, thinks that they can override the will of 300 plus million people in this country. Now, not all those people vote, to be sure, but it's their decision not to vote. That's their will. Trump could get 80. If some of the projections are right, you have any idea? He could get 85 million votes. And these four scumbags, one of which, by the way, my locals community is like a small body of investigative journalists. Melissa Hart, appointed by John Hickenlooper, literally is like bred from the Watergate era. It's crazy. I kid you not. It's just they think that they know better than you. It's insane. And we can't listen. People are going on and on like, listen, lawfare is a cancer in this country. It is a cancer, one that's been metastasizing. And Democrats are certainly behind the metastasizing of the cancer that is lawfare. However, we can't have this conversation. I'm so sick of hearing it. They're doing what their voters want them to do. You just heard that airbrain twit go on and on. They're representing their voter. That's their voter. That idiot. That credentialed moron. That's their voter. Who has a predilection toward authoritarianism. They're just serving her. They're just doing what they know their voters expect them to do. Where are Republicans? It's their job as the opposing party to excise that cancer. And they're not, because the truth is they're hypocrites. The truth is they would love to use lawfare against you and candidates who run for office who better represent you. They want to use lawfare to beat your chosen candidates when they can't beat them at the ballot box. Vince Fong doesn't want to have to obey the law to be rejected to run against David Giglio. God forbid an America First Republican takes over for Kevin McCarthy in California 20. They don't want that to happen. So they want to be able, when it serves them, they want to be able to break the law too. They want the political indictment of their own party challengers to be on the table as a strategy for them when they can't beat them at the ballot box. All this time, 8 months now, how long has it been? And I got pounced on. He ran to his outlets in Florida to write up fake news stories declaring that what I was telling you was incorrect. Oh, that's fake news. He's lying. I was not lying. And I think we all, unless you are blind, you're deaf, or you're stupid, I think we all see this now. And he's not even trying anymore. He's dropping the pretense now. If it wasn't for Republicans going along with this, they wouldn't be able to do it this easily. If it wasn't for Republicans who are just as bad as them, or basically the Bud Light versions of them, they're like the wannabe bullies too, the wannabe authoritarians, they would not be able to get away with this. If Republicans were 100% united like Democrats are, it would not be this easy to get away with this. But because Democrats know that there are Republicans waiting in the wings, waiting in the wind, hoping that their own plots succeed, they are emboldened to move forward. And they know it when they hear things like this.
I think the U.S. Supreme Court is going to reverse that. But here's the larger thing of what the left and the media and the Democrats are doing. They're doing all this stuff to basically solidify support in the primary for him, get him into the general, and the whole general election is going to be all this legal stuff. And look, it's unfair. They're abusing power 100%. But the question is that going to work? And I think they have a playbook that unfortunately will work. And it'll give Biden or the Democrat or whoever the ability to skate through this thing. That's their plan. That's what they want. What they don't want is to have somebody like me who will make the election not about all those other issues, but will make the election about the failures of Biden, the failures of the left, and how we're going to be able to turn the country.
All right. I actually got the wrong crosstab up in the meantime while we were doing that. So let me get this other one because we're going to go right to polling right after this. 12:31. Ron DeSantis is now espousing crazy contorted delusions that you hear from people on Twitter or X, formerly known as Twitter, that this is somehow some kind of crazy, they want him to win the primary so they can, no, it isn't that complicated. They're friggin' terrified of him. It's that simple. They're afraid that a Trump unchained without, that's why they did what they did to stop him from getting a second term. A Trump unchained, unafraid to have to run for re-election is very, very dangerous. That is a dangerous man to them. That is not a dangerous man. Would he be as bad as Nikki Haley and just bend over? She's got a habit of doing it. Is he going to do that? I don't know. Maybe sometimes, whatever. Tucker was 100% correct. Ken Griffin single-handedly got Ron DeSantis to change his position on the Ukraine war overnight when Tucker was still on Fox. Everyone talks about the indictments, and sure, that was an enlightening moment for voters. And they really decided at that point to start abandoning Ron DeSantis and his campaign. But that wasn't the beginning of it. That they were paying attention when that happened, and that was bad for him. But what got them to pay attention was Tucker Carlson. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember the interviews polling people like it was yesterday. And Tucker said, I want a statement from each of the so-called top-tier candidates about their position on the Ukraine war. And initially, he gave a MAGA response. It is a regional conflict. They have to deal with their own border while we deal with our border at home. He gets one call from a big donor. Everything Never Back Down raised, folks, like less than 200 donors. One of them being Ken Griffin, who seeded the first PAC, which then transferred the money into Never Back Down. It took one phone call, and that man flip-flopped. No, actually, it's very critical. This is a fight for democracy. You kidding me? You think they're afraid of that? No, they're afraid of the guy who gets 100 phone calls in a day. And they're all from people who are saying, don't you dare move that embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. If you do, you're going to spin the whole region in a conflict. Don't you kill Qasem Soleimani. If you do, you're going to spin the whole region in a conflict. Don't you dare tell Angela Merkel she's got to pay her way in NATO. If you do, the whole alliance is going to collapse. And then he just doesn't give a royal shit, and he does it anyway. They're afraid of the guy who isn't in office for 24 hours before he says, can I get that executive order on TPP? Billions of global dollars to lobby for TPP down the drain in a second with the sweep of Donald Trump's pen. They're afraid of the guy who has the Crossfire Hurricane documents. Because that's what this is really all about now, isn't it? Didn't you read Jack Smith's filing? He's not mad at some documents or all documents. He's not mad at super, super secret, top secret sources and methods, No, that's not what he's citing. He's afraid of the receipts. They are mad at Donald Trump for taking receipts home. They're afraid of that guy. This ain't complicated. They will do whatever. They will destroy whatever to stop this guy from returning to the White House. I'm at the point, and you know this if you watch me, they will nudge whomever to do the most awful thing in the world to stop this man from retaking the White House. And let me just put what he said to bed right now. And we're going to look at the polls in a second. We're not going to get to that right away, but we are going to get to it. He can go on and on about, I can win, but he can't because they're going to do this. I'm sorry. I'm not like doing this to mock or like be, like supporting one candidate or another. In case you haven't noticed, they are targeting a certain group of people for annihilation in this country. It's time to speak up. If the man is not the nominee, you're going to lose anyway. It can't get much clearer. There's a reason why Nikki Haley is running an ad right now, citing numbers that are 2 months old. DeSantis gets crushed. Trump squeaks by. I win in a landslide. See the ad? I'm not playing it on my show, but you probably know if you have seen it what I'm talking about. Those polls are 2 months old. Haley is already collapsing. Even in the Mecklenburg poll, or the Muhlenberg poll, which is one of the worst polls in the state of Pennsylvania, they've missed by 20 plus points in the past. They are horrible. Although they're right about Dave McCormick running that far behind Donald Trump. Not that far. We had it, it was like 16 points. They have it 26 points, 27. I think that's a little nuts. But she's not leading by 2 because she's performing stronger. She's leading because Joe Biden's support share falls when you pet him up against her. But she falls too. Same thing with DeSantis. He's down. He's not down by a lot, but he's down only by that little of a margin because Biden's vote share is falling. That is nothing, and every pollster knows what I'm about to say is true. That is nothing but a bunch of normies who aren't really sure who Ron is yet, definitely not sure who Nikki is, saying, I don't know. The 42% who say they'll vote for Biden against Trump are still going to vote for Biden against Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis. They're going to do it. The only question is whether or not somebody else can get 43, 44. And by the way, that poll is very clearly, I don't know if I call it an outlier. Everybody has Trump up in Pennsylvania. Everybody. So the fact they have him down by 1 is a little bit, we would expect this though. I would honestly tell you to applaud these polls that come out that are, appear to be outliers. That should be the case in polling. Even the New York Times poll yesterday, all I think he did, he is devoted to live caller. So, Nate, you know what I'm going to say is true. I don't know why you keep doing this and screwing the pooch all the time. Now we're headed into a presidential cycle again. Your record has not been very good with them. You're holding to, I can't say that, Lord's dirty, and Lord will get mad. You're refusing to let go and clenching to live caller. Your seniors are too democratic. Do I think Joe Biden's doing better with seniors? Sure. He's doing better with seniors in our polling as well. But you got Trump up by 6 among voters under 30 and Biden up with seniors. That's a live caller problem, bro. You have a mode issue. Or does he? Or did he do that because he wanted his likely voter model to flip it from from Trump +2 to Biden +2? Because before he put his thumb on the scale, Trump was ahead, 46-44. But again, even with that, he thinks, that's his likely voter assumption, and that's fine. That's fine. We should expect to see some people have Trump up by 2, Trump down by 2, Biden up by 2, Biden down by 2. That's how polling is supposed to work. And then every 20 polls or so, there should be one that is a wild outlier. That's what we should expect. If at least the majority of us have a sound methodology. The years of 2016 where there were no outliers. Nobody overstated Trump in Ohio. 2020, same thing. That's when you know there's a problem. So I think I welcome that there are some polls out there that still vary to some degree, although I think they're badly, badly wrong. And now I'm going to tell you why, because we are going to look at a brief overview before we get into the crosstabs. All right, so here I put up the map for the first time for the general election, and I'm going to plot them on the map as well, like we do for the primary. It's just I have to figure out how to make it so it's not so cluttered. Our sample is so big. It's not like other pollsters. Our sample is big, so it is very cluttered when we try to show you the map the way we show you with the primaries. It is very, very cluttered, and it's hard for me. There's no other way to do it unless we do one of two things. Just flatly tell you that you have to zoom in, period. If you want to look at the interview details on each and every poll respondent on the map, we're just going to have to tell you, please zoom in. That's number one. That's one way of doing it. Or we scrap the idea of showing you each and every interview, and we simply show you support by area with, markers the way we normally do, and use what's called hexagonal binding. And that will tightly fit hexagon symbols within certain geographical areas when there is support that overlaps, it will simply state that by showing you numerical values of that hexagonal binding. All right, so there may be one hexagon marker and it's a +14 or something, and and it's red. And that will tell you that in around that area, there are 14 other interviews where Donald Trump was picked as well. All right. And vice versa. For instance, on the West Coast, you will see a bunch of blue grouped together, and you'll see like blue +16, blue this, in that area. That's the only way we can think to do it. I really want to show the interviews, so I'm trying to figure out how to do it. There's just no way to make the hexagon marker that small. So the other way to do it is to use the little spike, which is like a little triangle, 2 triangles side by side. It's called the spike. And that's one way, but I just don't like it. I'm not sure I really like it. May have no choice though. So instead we went with this, and I decided to show you. I told people beforehand that we normally give you the 4 census regions, the 4 basic census regions: the Northeast, the Midwest, the South, and then, of course, the West. All right. So it can be a little bit confusing giving our definitions by region. The South includes Washington, D.C. It includes Maryland, right? So, and it certainly includes Northern Virginia and the entire state of Virginia. But Nova, obviously, is you're going to get a lot of responses from Nova. So I just didn't want to confuse too many people. So, and not even confused, just I wanted to give more information, more granular information. So we did census divisions as well. And the first map that we're going to show you is census divisions. That is the one we chose to highlight. You will see regions in a second. This is when it comes to the primary. If we have time to get there, we will. It's just that I think we all know what's going on with the primary. Joe Biden is dominating in the 60s still. Nobody, Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips, have not been able to gain any steam. However, there is still a significant amount of someone else and undecided. Where on the Republican side, Donald Trump is at this point doing almost as good as Joe Biden in our polling, even though it's a much more crowded field, a much more serious field, certainly a better funded field. And yet, there is almost nobody who says someone else, and undecided is basically down to like 6%. By the way, and if you didn't, if you missed, maybe you don't even get it. Sean Trendy did a very good write up last night on, let me just make sure I get the name of it correct, because it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about right now. And there's a name for what he calls it. The takeaway. All right. And what he says, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about the primaries. He says, Trump, that as always, it makes more sense to focus on Iowa and New Hampshire than on the national primary numbers. I disagree with that, but I understand what he's saying. What do we see in Iowa? Trump holds a 32-point lead on average. It's higher now, by the way, with the advent of the 2 polls that were released in the New York Times. They don't poll Iowa that great. So they also have Haley above DeSantis, as does Emerson. So taking 52, the New York Times is a national poll. Emerson is the one that came out, has Haley above DeSantis, much like myself. And by the way, Seth Levy has been saying for months he deserves credit. He's been saying that as well. While Seth and I were talking about the potential for DeSantis to lose his MAGA base and never Trump to coalesce behind Nikki Haley, which made more sense to us, which would result in a total collapse for DeSantis and Nikki leapfrogging him. Others were mocking it. So Seth deserves a lot of credit because he was right 100%. And so Sean says, but whatever, let's put it aside for a second and focus on Iowa and New Hampshire more than the primary numbers nationally. What do we see? A 32-point lead in Iowa, now above 52%. His closest contender at the moment in the average is, and he wrote this before the release of Iowa, is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is at 20%, and former North Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who is now preferred by 16. On and on and on, talking about the idea that things could change. He basically says the key, however, is that these are, because he talks about movements. Marco Rubio jumped into third last minute. Mike Huckabee came from behind to win in 08. John Kerry, he was listless at some point, and then he skyrocketed in Iowa at the last minute. Mike Huckabee won by a few points. Okay. Rick Santorum, which he brings up as well, he won by less than a point. Mitt Romney was only ahead by less than 2. Marco Rubio came in third. He got, about 10% more. Even if someone did something like that, which is already historic, they still would not catch Trump. And the key, however, he writes, is that these movements were mostly well underway by this point in their respective campaigns. It's simply getting too late in the day to expect Trump to lose Iowa. Absent, of course, a massive polling failure, unlike anything we've ever seen, or an unusually large break in the polls. In truth, it would probably take both. And that's why I disagree with him on the national, because you can see hints in the national polling of that before it happens. And it's going to take a lot more than 11%. So here we are with the census regions. What we're showing you here is that this includes undecideds as well. If the presidential election were held today, for whom would you vote? And then added on that, if the answer is undecided, they were given the follow-up. If you had to decide today, for whom would you vote? Historic finding number 1, and probably the most significant. Trump has hit 50% for the first time in the history of the big data poll. Never, going back to 2016 when we did the PPD tracking poll with a group of like 5,000 respondents, usually around 25 to 33% of repeat respondents that were ballpark all at once a rolling average of 2,500 to 3,500 that were included in the rolling average daily, 3-day rolling average. When we got, it was a 7-day when it was slow. And then as we got closer, it became a 3-day rolling average. Trump never hit 50%. Never. He outpolled Hillary more than he underpolled her when you included Johnson and Stein. But head to head, when you force people to lean, Hillary Clinton outperformed him. Not by much, but she would get to about 48. He would get to about 46. That's all. Going now to 2020. Fast forward 4 years, going back a couple to 2020. Our final poll, making people decide. We still we understated a share of the vote by 2 points. As we did Biden, by the way. There were too many someone else's. Those people either didn't vote or they were full of crap. But it was a 49-45. Trump is a little bit higher here, a little bit lower there. He has never hit 50 in our poll, even when we told people if you had to decide today. So this is a big deal. Here's what we got when we break it down by census division. The keys are very simple because we only did it based on the range of leads that each candidate held. So you're not going to see equal key shares here, right? On the legend I'm talking about. So we have Biden's lead less than or equal to 15 percentage points. In only 2 census divisions did we find a lead for Biden, and they were significant outside of, that range. Battleground is the other one, greater than 0 but less than 3, in which we found 2 census divisions where that occurred. Trump's lead being greater or equal to 3 but less than 10 we had, and then also Trump's lead being greater or equal to 10 but less than 15, and Trump's lead being greater or equal to 15%. Let's go through a couple. Biden's strongest area is New England. It's 4.5% of the total share of the sample. You like our tooltips this time? I got a little bit of help. There's a lot apparently we can do, and we just have, every time we experiment more and more, it's going to get cooler. This year is going to be cool, folks. It is. So here we can see, actually, this is a lot weaker than what Biden was able to do in New England in 2020. And it is one of his strongest areas, 58.1 to 41.9. The other area that's strong for Biden is, of course, the Pacific, right? And again, census division is different, 59.1 to 40.9. Remember, by the way, when we go out, when we look at regions, consider how much of Biden's support must be concentrated in certain areas, like inner cities of Portland, in Oregon, in LA even, but not so much in, even when you go to the other coast, it is concentrated in England more so than it is concentrated in the Northeast. For a national poll, that's important because that is telling us that he's just doing really well in liberal areas. In the more battleground areas, he's having a problem. Which brings us, of course, to the first one, the Middle Atlantic. That's New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, the tri-state area. This should not be Biden +1. And this is with fully decideds. So don't tell me that, this is like some kind of spoof, because there's a whole lot of Biden voters who are just sitting in the undecided camp. That's why we wanted to lean them this time. No, this is Donald Trump doing particularly well in Pennsylvania and in certain parts of New York. Really well. And when we get up the markers, you're going to see it. New York is, there's these slew of polls that have shown Biden's lead in recent polls. One of his strongest leads in New York, only like 10 points. That's a collapse of almost 66%. New York is a D+30 state. And then when you add everybody to the ballot, it could fall even to single digits. And then, by the way, in one poll, it's Biden +10. In the other head-to-heads, it's less. Biden +8, Biden +9. So this is in line with what we have seen. All right, let's go to the South Atlantic. This is a lot of, like I said, the DC area, Nova, areas like this. This is a Biden lead. I mean, a Trump lead, excuse me. It is, listen, North Carolina, somebody had, I think it was Sean Trendy actually, had just put up about movers out of liberal states, and North Carolina now benefiting a lot like Florida benefited and still does. And that has been a problem for Democrats, because those people who are moving are not moving and bringing their blue values. They are leaving the states that are blue, and they are going to red areas, and they are voting Republican, and many of them are just Republicans anyway. You can see it in the registration trend. You can see it in the non-white registration trend in North Carolina, specifically among black voters. North Carolina at this point is not particularly competitive. Trump continues to lead by ridiculous margins. Florida, not competitive. Georgia, Trump +5. All right, so you have Biden just doing very well still. Somebody asked me about Maryland, given this graph. Maryland is still very Biden. Delaware is still very Biden. Northern Virginia is still very Biden. In fact, Virginia is still Biden. I just don't know how much overall it will be. I think at this moment it would be closer than we'd expect. The East, South, Central area, of course, we do expect Trump to be dominating here, and he is 60.7 to 39.3. In the West, South, Central area, Texas, right? 56.9 for Trump, 43.1 for Biden. Northwest Central, 61.3 for Trump, 38.7. And then again, when we get to the West, remember the mountain range is Trump +10. Because we're talking about Nevada. We're talking about Arizona. Within this is also New Mexico, Colorado, which we were just talking about. And then some of the plain states that Trump does very, very well in. Can just remember, and actually let's overlap it in real quick before we move on. See how the West is Biden, 54.3 to 45.7. It can be a little bit misleading because, of course, you have Arizona in here, and Trump almost assuredly has to carry Arizona. Well, there are two things that are true. When you overlap these, you can see that Biden, in fact, is not really doing good in the entire region, and in the battleground region, he's losing. Number one. Number two, that accounts for how close the West is. The West should be like 60-something to 30-something. Well, not that bad, but 60-40, ballpark 60-40. And we're going to talk about actually their margins in a second from 2020. But it should be a lot better for Biden than it is if Biden's going to want to win, some of those areas like he did in he won the West like 60-40 last time. So that's a big shift. Trump got 40% of the vote. Now Trump's getting 46% of the vote. He got 60 almost. And now he's getting 54. That's a shift. That's a shift enough to cost Arizona. And when we look at Hispanics in the crosstabs, think about what that means. What state is that going to have an impact on? Arizona, most definitely. Nevada, most definitely. Nevada. God. Most definitely. Southern Texas. Look at the South. It's greater than 10-point lead for Trump, even including Washington, D.C., Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. Still red areas with a lot of population. And the Midwest. Let me read some of this before I give it away. All right. So to give you the overall numbers here, Trump initially leads Biden 43.7 to 41.7, so 44-42, with 14.6% reporting to be undecided. However, when they are leaned, Trump is winning the leaners. All right. He takes 52-48, basically 51.9 to 48.1. So overall, it brings his lead to a first ever majority margin of 51.3 to 48.7. By the way, Dave, I saw your model. So this guy on Twitter is Qantas Polls is his handle. I follow stuff. I think it's pretty interesting because, like me, when I first started modeling, polls meant nothing to me. Like when it comes to modeling, you don't really need polls, right? They can help you when you do an expanded model. They can help you to determine voting preference and patterns. But, it's like in my experience, 2018, I actually showed this. The only model that we had up outperformed the model polls model. And why? Because with the exception of Arizona, I believe. There was one state in there where it didn't outperform. But Florida is a great example. Senate and governor's races were both leaning Democrat on everyone else's model because they're not a model. They're just polls. Unless they don't want them to be, like the Cook Political Report. They moved Michigan and Nevada back to lean Democrat yesterday for the presidency. If Joe Biden had the lead that he had in Nevada and Michigan, and Trump's approval rating recovered, they would never move it back. How do we know? Because it did. Trump's approval rating was better than Joe Biden's approval rating is right now. Pre-COVID, before it happened, we're getting ready to be hit with the very convenient virus that targets Trump supporters during Trump's economic boom. I never believe in coincidences. Never. Never ever. We're getting ready right about now. It's December 20th. You're going to hear about it a little bit here and there if you were to rewind the clock right now. But right now, Donald Trump's approval rating is good. They didn't have Michigan and Nevada leaning Republican. They're so full of shit. And they have such double standards. That's why we call them the election mafia. They're not legitimate or serious people. And stop reading my Twitter feed during election night. Everybody knows, right? People who've done election coverage with me, you all know what I'm talking about. Stop reading my feed and pretending like you have an original thought. You're trolling me and then putting it up on your Twitter feed and pretending like you are coming up with it. All right, so we just went over some of the leads in the region. However, again, for a Democratic presidential candidate, he holds a statistically insignificant and historically weak 1-point lead in the Middle Atlantic. This is stunning, but in line with other recent polls suggesting New York is surprisingly close and the former president leads in Pennsylvania. All right, so Biden, by the way, leads 52.5 to 47.5 in the Northeast. Much more narrow than the 58 to 41 margin he enjoyed in 2020. Specifically, looking at the census division, he leads 58.1 to 41.9 in New England. Interesting. Again, remember, in the census, you can clearly see the other states that are considered the Northeast. We like to lump Pennsylvania in with the Rust Belt. And people think synonymously with the Midwest when they think that, but this is the Midwest. Starting with Ohio, then you go up. You have Michigan in there. Of course, you have Wisconsin in there. You have Minnesota later. You do not have Pennsylvania. That is the Middle Atlantic in the census division, and then it is the Northeast in the census region. So very, very, why? Why am I stressing this? Because the overlapping findings make it very, very clear. Joe Biden is still doing good in Vermont. He's still doing good in Massachusetts. He's still doing good in Rhode Island. It doesn't bode well for Trump in New Hampshire. All right. But anywhere outside of that, Biden is in deep trouble. And that includes parts of New York that, is Trump going to take New York? No, that's not really the point. If New York's going to be that close, and Trump is outpacing Republicans, then that which he is, then that's like a 306 at least electoral vote win. That's what that's going to mean. And I'm trying to be rather conservative because there could be a state that nobody sees go that goes. It happens every year. Something goes that nobody believed was going to go. All right. So moving on, conventional wisdom holds that the election will be decided in that Rust Belt. We just finished last month a large study across the Big Six. There they are: Iowa, Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Trump led in 5 of the 6 states, with the 2 presidents locked in a statistical dead heat in Minnesota, the bluest of the bunch. Now he leads Biden in the Midwest. Trump leads Biden in the Midwest by a margin of 53.4 to 46.6, up from the 51 to 47 edge he had back in November of 2020. Check this out. And I know I got to take a break, and Laura's not here to yell at me, so I'm going to try to squeeze out a little bit more before I have to. Let me just get things in line. But I know, and Laura's probably listening right now while she's out going, take a break. You know you need to take your break. I know. Bear with me. Let me wait until we get to the next section. Voters who cast a ballot in 2020 say they voted for Joe Biden by a little over 3 points, 49.3 to 46.1. Very close to the 51 to 47 final result, even as 2% claimed to have supported Libertarian Joe Jorgensen, and another 2.6% claimed to have voted for someone else. I can tell you for a fact that is a highly, highly representative sample, even though we got 59.3 to 46.1 when it was really 51 to 47. Why? Because 2.6% did not vote for someone else. They are lying. I made a comment about this on social media. We are now firmly in the phase for a pollster who is polling an unpopular, let's call it even bad presidency. When you ask people who they voted for, they lie to you. And how do we know they are lying? Because many of that 2.6% were in states where there wasn't a someone else option. There was no Don Blankenship. There was no other independent. There was no Howie Hawkins. Hell, some of them didn't even have the libertarian traditionally on the ballot. It wasn't there. So they're telling us that because they are embarrassed. They don't want to admit they voted for Joe Biden. Of those who cast the ballot in 2020, the race is nearly even. Trump has a tiny little edge. That's still a sizable shift, however, away from the incumbent. But it's not as large as the 58.2 to 41.8 lead that he holds among voters who did not cast a ballot in 2020. That's what's driving his support up. Among likely voters, Trump's lead shrinks slightly, but he still leads 50.7 to 49.3. And the reason why ours is still a tiny Trump lead, even in the likely voter model, while the New York Times goes from Trump +2 to Biden +2, that's a 4-point shift. They're not believing these new voters. They believed him in 16 when they kept claiming 16%, 18% were going to be new voters. They're not believing them now, apparently, and they're weeding them out. They're screening them out if they don't have a large vote history or robust vote history. Funny, they believed him with Biden when it favored Biden. Now they are, I don't know, acting as if there's some reason to disbelieve these people. I think the primaries, the caucus first in Iowa, and then moving into the primaries is going to prove me right. They are going to prove me right. That this is going to be a significant number of first-time participants. And they're not all young. In the three-way hypothetical matchup, Trump leads by 3 points, 43.4 to 40.1, with 9.8% choosing someone else. And I should have said a three-way hypothetical matchup with a generic generic third party. As you can see here, before we move on, I just want to close out before we take a break, and then we're going to finish this and then go to the crosstabs. The appetite for a third-party choice has receded somewhat in October, not quite marginally. You can see it here. That's the someone else on the marker. You see it? It's still high, but we're early in this process, and it's still clearly present. When asked to lean, more undecideds still do choose a generic third-party option than either the two-party choice. We're going to show you that too. However, when that does happen, Trump's lead grows to 4 points, 44.9 to 41.4. You're going to see that 44 range over and over and over again. When we polled Biden v. Trump, and it's funny because we don't always even have to try to decide them, but even in the full ballot, there just comes a point Trump's lead just will fall anymore. You add Kennedy, he loses people. You add West, but he loses people and Biden loses people. You add West, Biden loses people. You add Stein, Biden loses. And yeah, they're both losing some support, but Trump's is not falling at the rate Biden's is. There just comes a point where Trump's vote share refuses to go down anymore. So the larger the ballot, the worse it's going to be for Biden if he doesn't figure out how to consolidate these voters back. And the problem for him is, again, too, is that the new voter population is not on his side. So if it is a large turnout among, or large comparatively, among new voters, he's in deep trouble. Deep trouble. I'm telling you, it could. I was talking about this the other day, and what I meant was that it actually could be not that close for a presidential election. They're usually close. That's just how we are in this country now. But if these new voters do in fact come out, and by the way, they're all validated voters. They're on the rolls. First timers, people who dropped off, will reactivate. They're all on the rolls. This isn't random digital dial out of a phone book here. We don't play that game. So these people, I'm telling you, I believe them. Until they give me a reason not to believe them. And we're going to find that out pretty soon. All right, let's take a quick break and have a word from our sponsor. Hold on, let me get him. He's coming to see you guys. Oh, here he is. All right, go ahead, do your read. Have you guys taken your jab this holiday season? Do you know somebody with myocarditis? Myself, Anthony Fauci. Listen, get out of here, Elf. That's why I'm bringing you the wellness company. All right? He does look like Anthony Fauci. I've introduced you guys to them a couple of weeks ago and their medical emergency kit, which I got, Laura got a couple of weeks ago as well. And this product is another great one that I genuinely believe that every American should be taking, or at least, very least, have it on hand when it's necessary, when you get a visit from the Fauci troll. It's called Spike Support. So listen up. If you're not thinking that something is up at this point with so many previously healthy people experiencing myocarditis because they listened to the Fauci Alf, blood clots, turbo cancers, menstrual irregularities, miscarriages, and the new died suddenly phenomena, then you're not paying attention. The culprit is Spike. You know what? Spike is a lingering threat from both the Fauci juice and the man-made Fauci flu. Linked to all kinds of long-term health issues. Even Big Pharma is admitting it. Even they are admitting there are problems. So many people, myself included, are looking for answers and ways to stay healthy despite the spike that are a part of our population now. And while we know those answers won't ever come from the mainstream sources, truth-seeking doctors like Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Drew Pinsky and their team at the Wellness Company have emerged to give us some. There's one question that these doctors are asked every single day. What do I do after I already got it? I listened to the experts and I got it. Now I'm afraid. Now I'm concerned. Thanks to the Wellness Company, there's actually something we can do now. That's where Spike Support comes in. A unique blend of natural ingredients. They aim to block and dissolve the spike in your body so you can get back to the pre-COVID feeling and stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. Their website has tons of testimonials. Go check them out, folks. They're from Spike Support customers who report increased mental clarity, energy levels that have gone up, among many other things. Reclaim your health at twc.health/TPP. The link is in the description. Again, that's twc.health/TPP. And get that 10% off using that TPP coupon. In this fight for truth and medical freedom, you owe it to yourself and your family to take back control of your health. It's an extremely important conversation. I've been having it a lot with members of my family, especially some of the older ones who thought they were doing the right thing. And not enough people are having the conversation. They cause a whole host of problems. We all know it. And the Wellness Company doctors, they're out there providing answers and hope. This revolutionary supplement is worth checking out. Again, go to twc.health/TPP. While you're there, don't forget your medical emergency kit. Life-saving drugs, ivermectin, amoxicillin, the Z-Pack. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Merry Christmas to it. We'll take another break in a second and go through it. But again, one more time, twc.health/TPP. For anyone who wants a quick link, it's in the description, in the video. Scroll down, you'll see it. If you're on your phone and you're watching, hold the link. It's going to ask you if you want to open a new tab. This way you don't redirect yourself away from the show. Because God forbid you don't want to do that. You don't want to miss anything. We're about to wrap up the graphs here before we get into the crosstabs, which there's a lot to. There is. And I'm going to try to get through what I think are, I went to the crosstabs because I'm being subliminal. I'm going to try to get through what I think is the most important, because Friday, I really want to leave Friday. It's already 1:15. I really want to leave Friday for fun, and the Christmas poll, because I think that conversation is another one really, really worth having. There's just incredibly interesting results. Locals, you're going to get it real soon. Again, wait till you see the crosstabs, the demographics on the simple question: do you support Christmas? Wait till you see it. Very interesting stuff. I mean, you just, I guess, have to expect it, because those numbers you can't get to without, without certain groups surprising you. All right, in the four-way matchup with an independent candidate and a generic third-party option, Trump leads Biden after leaners 42.7 to 39.0, and then 9.1% opted for Kennedy. And listen, actually, did I go over the generic other? I did, right? That's what we normally track. If you go to the tracker, you're going to see that. We're going to add the other hypothetical scenarios to the portfolio page with the tracker. Okay. But because we had been doing it this way for so long, we wanted to add this. All right. So as you can see, again, pretty significant decline this month in the generic someone else. All right. So when you add the full six-way hypothetical, eliminating the generic third-party option, and also including independent Cornel West, the Libertarian Party candidate Lars Mapstead, and Green Party candidate Dr. Jill Stein, with no undecideds, Trump leads Biden 43.4, 44 again, to 38.0, while RFK gets 11.5%, Mapstead comes in at 3.1%, West at 2.5%, and Stein at 1.3%. So basically, you can see how Trump's lead increases here. This is different from October. I am not ready to just outwardly declare that RFK is in fact helping Trump. I think that you have to remember the hive mind that is the modern left, number one. Number two, it does appear that where Kennedy does hurt Biden is in many, many areas where it's not enough to cost him the state. Whereas there are several states where Donald Trump is being hurt by Kennedy, and he needs every single one of those votes to make sure election fortification doesn't edge out a tiny win. You may have noticed, but Josh Shapiro scrapped earlier this week, I think it was Monday, he announced that they are scrapping the $11 million that was set aside to modernize the Pennsylvania election system. There have been experts on the left and right who have been warning about how outdated and antiquated Pennsylvania's electoral system is, and that it needs to be updated. We saw what happened in Northampton. Listen, they say it didn't have an impact. That's bullcrap. Erie County and Northampton vote almost identical to each other every single election. There is no reason why Caroline Carluccio won Erie County but lost Northampton. I'm sorry. You could still lose it. What I mean is, she won at Erie County and lost Northampton by a huge margin. That does not happen in Pennsylvania. Does not happen. Don't give me the turnout differential. I don't want to hear it. There was a turnout differential in Erie too. The only place where Republicans really did well getting the vote out was in some parts of Western Pennsylvania, but specifically in Allegheny County. So in any event, once you add others to the ticket, however, with RFK on the ticket as well, it starts to really benefit Trump. And you can see that 3.7 up from 2.6. And his overall lead is his popular vote lead head to head with Biden right now is 2.6. And I just kind of skipped over it, but that Qantas did the modeling and just the fundamentals only model that he has, it was almost identical to our head-to-head vote share. That always makes me happy to see, because I know how accurate what he's using in his, what he calls the fundamentals model, overlaps quite a bit with what we identified as being predictive, and that's why we used it in many of them in our own models. So it was interesting to see. Biden versus Trump versus RFK versus Mapstead versus Sign versus West. Then you see Trump's lead really jump 5.6. When you have Trump, RFK, and a generic third party, Trump's lead goes to 4. When you have a generic third party, you could see Trump is going to start to benefit. There is this open dissatisfaction with Joe Biden right now in the Democratic Party that is making Democrats reflexively pick someone else. Now, it could be that third-party vote shares don't end up that high and that most of those people do come home to Biden. That absolutely could happen. But what's likely to happen along with that is a depressed turnout. Democrats will go to the moon to fill in ballots that don't belong to them. So that's why turnout is so key for Trump and Republicans on that side. Trump has got to get out these people who he is attracting who are newer voters or voters who have flipped on Joe Biden, and you can clearly see them. I will say this too. Well, maybe I should wait before I bring that up, but I really don't want, I'll be honest. Let me just put it this way. Imagine knowing and understanding the lengths that Democrats have gone to prevent Donald Trump from winning back the White House. The indictments that are ridiculous. I mean, come on. Please don't try to argue in the comment section that Donald Trump really did anything wrong. I mean, this is, you just sound stupid. Don't argue that January 6th was an insurrection. You sound like an unserious person. Let's have an honest intellectual discussion. They're doing this because they're trying to prevent Donald Trump from winning, and they don't feel they can beat him. It's that simple. Everyone knows, even Barack Obama, dudes, was called... Joe's going to lose. Even Barack Obama knows that Joe Biden is going to lose. David Axelrod knows he's going to lose, or at least he would right now. If the election was held today, he's going down. So this is what they believe. Imagine so-called intelligent, so-called educated, credentialed professionals on the left, like judges and lawyers. They're willing to tear apart the society that they live in, their families live in, use lawfare and all sorts of crazy, unconstitutional, banana republic tactics. They're all willing to do that. Yet, their base isn't willing to fill in ballots that don't belong to them. Their partisans who count votes aren't willing to ignore signatures that don't match and funnel them through anyway. They wouldn't count duplicate ballots. They wouldn't engage in good old-fashioned vote stuffing, even though they were told this man is like worse than Hitler and Mussolini and Stalin. Don't forget Stalin. Imagine being that stupid and or naive. Here you have what are supposed to be adults, people who you would think, lawyers and judges, they got their shit together. Let's be honest, right? You know what I'm talking about. Professional, educated, decent. Yet they're willing to go through such horrible lengths to stop Donald Trump. We're expected to believe that people who are less educated, less financially sound than them, wouldn't be willing to break the law and commit voter fraud. Yeah, even on a mass scale. And we're supposed to have the highest faith and trust in these election judges and wards and precincts that are 95% Democratic. We're supposed to have, and more, by the way, I don't want to just target them. Even Republicans who are really fake Republicans in like Kent County, that recorder in Michigan. We're supposed to have the highest faith in people like this to do the right thing when we can't even trust a state Supreme Court. There's already been ruling from a state Supreme Court, multiple district court rulings, in Minnesota, Florida. There was a state Supreme Court in Minnesota, all liberal. District judges, activists, Democratic activists, all liberal. Yet Colorado decided, and John, you got to stop, Turley, with like these. You know what the standard is that really worries me? John, shut up. I appreciate you, brother. But you're talking like you can reason with these people. You cannot reason with them. They're ideological fanatics. They're ideologically possessed. And my friends at the Gaggle used to say, 100% correct. They're like possessed with a demon of ideology. They don't think logically. They don't reason. You're acting like you can talk about the standards in the law, the limited this principle, and dude, stop. Save it for the Supreme Court, because they don't give a damn. Of course, we all know the word president doesn't exist in the damn statute, but the words due process do. Of course, we know it's federal and a state court has absolutely no authority to do this. They don't care. And yet we're supposed to dismiss the idea that a bunch of activist scumbags pretending to be recorders in counties, pretending to be supervisors of elections in counties, wouldn't cheat. Of course they cheat. A lot. I suspect it's on a whole new level. If they're willing to commit egregious crimes, destroy the Constitution, destroy every norm, destroy every principle, destroy bedrock principles like attorney-client privilege, due process, the presumption of innocence. If they're so-called credentialed, educated higher-ups are willing to do all that, what is their base willing to do? And their support base willing to do? Kiss my rosy red Italian ass. This is crazy. Just nuts. And to me, it's like I just can't listen to these fake election mafia experts. There's no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Your evidence every day, every time you open your mouth, you serve as another piece of evidence. I know you don't believe that. One of them from the University of Virginia, I very much remember in great detail many years ago talking about Richard Nixon being robbed by Kennedy, but he didn't care because his family loved Kennedy. And how funny it was. You know who I'm talking about. Calm down, Rich. They don't steal elections. Get out of here. Liar. I had to show that. I had to take that off screen before I did that. I don't want anyone to accuse me of anything, of course. Laura's making me throw them out. I lost that poll last year in a landslide. Do you remember that? Are they magical elves or are they creepy Fauci-looking elves? I lost that poll like 95-5. I got my butt kicked. Laura was totally right. I don't know. I just saw them sitting there, cute as I thought, cute as can be, cute as a little button. I wasn't thinking Anthony Fauci, Russell, welcome to YouTube. New locals people, welcome. I wasn't thinking Anthony Fauci. They do look, of course they do. Of course. It took me a while to see it. I know. We took the time. And eventually over time, it became very clear to me that you were all right. Laura started it, of course. It's so much so that I actually began to wonder, did they make Anthony Fauci a little elf that year so everyone would look nicely on Anthony Fauci? Like, oh, look, it's a little Anthony Fauci elf. Don't forget to stick the jab in your ass cheek. You know what I'm saying? Folks, you got to realize the lengths that these people will go in the information war. The lengths they'll go to. Let's make a bunch of cute little elves that look like Anthony Fauci so that when Anthony Fauci tells people to do things, in the back of their mind, they're going to say, Santa's elf would never lie to us. Well, I broke something. It's done. You know what? It's over anyway, Fauci. It's over anyway now, Anthony. It's back to the North Pole with you. Oh, a voodoo doll. Yeah, once you've been traumatized and you see it, guys, you just never going back. You can't go back. You just can't go back. You see it, and there's no way to see there's no way to unsee it. You know what I mean? There's just no way to unsee it. All right, let's get down to brass tacks here. All right, so again, here we have men being significantly more likely to say their vote than women. That is true, but I always look at the likely vote to make sure with the odds that are greater than 50-50. It still doesn't put women on par with men, but still, because women outnumber men, that means maybe instead of looking at a 47-43 split or even a 46-54 split, we'd be looking more like at a 48-52 split. All right. By age detail, you can clearly see a couple of things want to get to real quick. Race. Where's race? There it is. Yeah. As we can see, black voters for the first time in like 3 polls reclaimed the lead when it came to certain to vote over Hispanics, who recently have been much, much more likely to say that they're going to vote than they have in the past. And that's still true of right now. They would normally be in the 50s or something right now, low, maybe 48, 50%. And then not 61.3 with another 26% saying that they're likely to vote is still very high for Hispanics. So interesting to keep our eye on that to see whether or not this month with statistical noise and we go back, white voters are significantly more likely to say now that they are going to, that they're certain to vote than Asian voters. And Asian voters are usually the ones who are more likely to say that they are going to vote. If we break it down specifically, you can actually see here that it's Asians at 65%, which is still higher than Black and Hispanic voters, which is normal, but much lower than whites. And then you have American Indian, Alaska Natives, and other races of that nature that are propped in with Asian and other. I put Reese detail up. I don't know if you guys noticed that. I did, because people were like, oh, Trump's doing better with Asians. He's actually not doing that much better with Asians. Here, let me show you. Let's go race detail. He's doing better, but he's not doing as well as the Asian other category makes it look. It's just that Trump is actually romping it with Native Americans, some Pacific Islanders, and other race and ethnicities. All right. And you can see that here. Look at American Indian, Alaska Native. It's not a big sample size at all, but you can see how it can impact greatly the Asian because it's so close, the Asian demographic. If we go to Biden v. Trump, right, with the undecideds, you can see that Trump is losing 51-25, the Asian vote. But then when we asked the rest of the undecided Asian population, which was like 21 more people, 87 decided immediately, 21 had to lean, and Trump actually took the leaners 54-46. All right, same thing with the American Indian, Alaska Native, only in reverse. Trump is doing much better with them. And then the leaners went to Joe Biden. Other race, ethnicity, another group that Donald Trump did well with in 2016, but did not do well with in 2020. That, again, flipped to Biden when they leaned. So you can see that overall, though, Trump is going to carry these groups while he's losing this group, which makes it much closer when you do the more regrouped variable and you look at them here. You know what? Why am I doing this? When you look at them together, you can see Asian other. Biden doesn't look like he's doing all that good. But then when you lean them, you can clearly see that Biden is carrying them all together. When you do race detail and you're looking at lean, you can clearly see that Biden is still winning 62% of the Asian vote. But Trump is now up. He's up to 38.4. That's higher than he was in 2020, significantly. And Native, we're only talking about 9 people here with Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, but as you get together with other races and ethnicities, which basically split, an American Indian, Alaskan Native, Trump carried and is carrying, that's when, you can really see a more detailed situation. On our tracker, which does not include the leaners. Let me just go back real quick. You can see Trump is doing better with white voters than he has been doing, but that's not good enough. He needs to win much more when they decide. Just watch. Keep your eye on that. Because remember the he's hemorrhaging white voters thing by Ron DeSantis's paid shill pollster. And then the non-white vote is not real. Mirage. All right. So 21% Trump is taking of the black vote, and he is at, without leaners, 38% with Hispanics, like approaching George Bush decided 2004 levels. It's just not mathematically possible for Joe Biden to win unless he were to somehow manage to win a lot more white votes. Unfortunately, for Joe Biden, when you lean, Trump takes 57% of the white vote. Trump is hitting his target with white voters. And even if it was a little point here and there, maybe he lost a point or something like that, he is more than making it up with his shift among both. He's making up with the shift among black voters alone, but let's pretend that that's a mirage. Are Hispanics a mirage? He's at 47% when you lean them. 53.2 to 46.8. And again, he's roughly at 40% again this month before even leaning Hispanics. We have him down. The New York Times, they didn't lean people, but the New York Times had Biden +2 with Hispanics, very close to what we had before leaning people. The CNBC All-American Economic Survey, which is conducted, I believe it's conducted by DeSantis's pollster and Hillary's pollster together, like the NBC News poll. It's definitely conducted by DeSantis's pollster. They had Trump up by 6 among Hispanics. It's not an outlier here. I just think that we're more realistic. If Trump wins Hispanics, then forget it, bro. I mean, forget it, folks. We're going home. We're going home, and we're going home early. And this is crazy. Yeah, that's a really good point. Blind Lawyer explains Insurrection Act of 1807, which defines insurrection, states only a president can even declare an insurrection. I've seen people make that point before. It's such a great point. It really is. And again, by the way, welcome to Russell. Of course, folks, I do always say and prioritize locals, but we always appreciate anyone who signs up for local for YouTube. You will get the election coverage stuff that members get, just the way same as locals. But is it yeah, but here's the, you know what, Tristan, I want to get to some of these questions. They're good questions before we get to the polls, because what's the difference, right? If he's off the ballot, it's just Colorado. Everyone else so far has rejected this argument with good reason, because it's crazy. All right. But they're taking him off the ballot for the primary, Tristan, and that's what matters. So if a bunch of blue states take him off the ballot, it will apply to the primary, and they're trying to deny him the majority delegate threshold that he needs to clinch the nomination, which he can do. They expect it to be done by late March. There was a report on it the other day. In truth, Donald Trump could clinch the nomination as early as March 12th. There's a problem with Haley's strategy, which is a survive until South Carolina. And everyone knows what Nikki Haley is willing to do to get support. She'll do it. Listen, I don't care if people are offended. Nikki Haley is known as a cheater. She's known as the right-wing Kamala Harris. She will do whatever it takes to get people to support her. That is a fact. All right. I'm sorry. I really don't care about anyone's feelings anymore. I just don't care. There are no rules anymore. Stop talking to me about decency and rules. You don't know what time you live in if you're still hung up on that crap. Why? What's decent? Me closing my mouth and not telling you about it, or her doing it? Somehow she's the victim in this or something? I mean, come on. This is crazy, this shit I see on Twitter. It's just crazy. Merry Christmas. I feel like contact is imminent, so sick of the RNC. John, it's a good point. But that's what they're trying to do, Tristan. Here's the problem with the Haley argument. If Trump wins Iowa, even if Haley comes in second and DeSantis falls off the map, DeSantis is then going to drop out. His voters are going to go to Trump. Most of them are going to go to Trump. Even if a plurality go to Trump and slightly more go to Haley, it's not enough to stop him in New Hampshire, but that wouldn't happen anyway because momentum. This is what's different about Donald Trump in a primary. Trump did not run the Iowa Hail Mary strategy to win Iowa, which is to say you run so far to the right to win the Iowa caucuses because you're trying to court evangelicals that you end up costing yourself New Hampshire and South Carolina because there are more moderates there. Right. And it's not even, by the way, that's what's weird about the CBS poll. That makes it really crazy. It's not even the case that there are that many more moderates in the electorate, right? 80% in Iowa will be conservative. Another 20% will be moderate. That's usually the way it works. I mean, that's what the exit polls in 2016 were, entrance polls, and that's roughly what we polled it at. It's a little bit more moderate this time, which is what I've been trying to explain to people, because even those who say they're conservative, they don't have the same definition. That Hail Mary definition is not the same because Iowa's changing. Barnes and I talked to recap that on Monday. But, we're talking about like a quarter of the electorate to 3 out of 10, maybe, that would be calling themselves moderate, even in New Hampshire. Could there be a surge of moderates and independents because it's an open primary? Sure, we hear this all the time. It is possible because of what Democrats have done to their schedule. Normally, you'll see those contests roughly at the same time. So Democrats will, vote in another primary. What Nikki Haley and John Sununu are trying to do is beat Donald Trump by taking advantage of Democrats screwing over their own voters in the first in the nation status, giving it to South Carolina, and then Democratic voters in New Hampshire saying, I feel betrayed. I'm just going to vote for Nikki Haley anyway. That's what John Sununu is actively trying to get Democrats to do. Nikki Haley as well. They did an entire segment on Fox News begging Democrats to ignore their contest and vote instead for Nikki Haley. And yes, it could conceivably happen. Here's the issue. They're not telling us that they're going to do that. So there's no sign of that yet. But here, the issue is when Trump wins Iowa, even if Haley comes in second, momentum is very real in primaries. And he didn't pin himself with the Iowa strategy. So he can win both Iowa and New Hampshire. And even fact of the matter is he's much more tailored to South Carolina. But because it's somewhere in between. It's more moderate than Iowa for sure. But it's not as moderate as New Hampshire. And he's going to romp. She wants a head-to-head fight in South Carolina. I think she's going to get her crushed. And Trump has not made himself unelectable because of the Hail Mary strategy. And he would be the first one to win in an open contest anyway. He'd be the first one to win both Iowa and New Hampshire if he does that. All right. So let's move on real quick. Here's the white vote. I mean, tremendous amount of shit. Ironically, because I hate it when we see this. I don't like what I feel is exaggerated black support. However, 20% was well in line before we decided with other polls. Fox News, 32%. 32%. And here's the kicker. The subgroup sampling error for black voters in our poll, because overall is only like 1.9, 1.7 even, I think. Black voters are only around 8 and change. So even if we're wrong, he's still at 19%. This is real. This is most definitely real. Even if we're wrong with Hispanics, he'd still be around 40%. And I'm talking about wrong in one way. It's entirely possible we're wrong in the other direction. And the New York Times is right, and Trump carries them. Or not the New York Times, CNBC. He's not going to carry black voters, but Hispanics very much are an open question at this point. All right, let's look by party, which is interesting. We have independent identification. Are you more of a Republican? Fox News does that too, and I'll show you that in a second. They're very, very, very close. Let me just show you that right now, actually. Among those who share little in common with either, they go to Trump, which is a big group, the biggest group out of the entire group. Trump is carrying them 52.3 to 47.7. If they're aligned more with the Republican Party, Trump is carrying them 91.4. Democratic Party, Biden's only carrying them by 89, and Trump is winning the crossover battle by 11 and 9. All right. Equally aligned, 51-49. So you can see that by party, independents and others are actually really close. Did I put party detail in there yet? I did not. I really want to show you the third party vote. Trump is winning that by a significant amount. And that's interesting. Why? Because in 2020, it was much to do about it, including the New York Times, that those third-party voters who voted against Hillary Clinton in 2016 are now returning to Joe Biden and not voting third party. Here, what we see is that if that happens again and the share of the vote for third-party candidates collapses as we get closer to election day, that's going to benefit Donald Trump. All right? All right, so as you can see, again, Trump is winning the crossover battle. More Democrats support Trump than Republicans support Biden. And that's a difference, again, from 2020. So by education, 57-43, high school or less. That I forgot to give. I got to do this too. Give you guys the white high school, because Trump is just killing him with whites who have no college degree. This is all no college, and some college associate degree is. And just to give you guys an idea, the change since 2020. Hold on, just to give you an idea. Where is it? Trump won, never attended college at all, 54-46. He's now winning at 57-43. Biden won some college, 51-47, while Trump won those who actually did have an associate's degree, 50-47. The some college was the bigger group, 23%, versus associates at 16%. So Biden overall won that group about 50 and change to 40 and change. He won it by about a point. Trump is now winning at 53-47. That's huge. It's a big chunk of the electorate. It's almost 4 in 10. It's like 39% of the vote. And we did not have it 39%. I believe ours is about 36%. Bachelor's degree, Biden won 51-47. He's winning them right now 52-48, which is, roughly on the same par. So like a point more for Biden. And then advanced degrees, 62-37, Biden won them by. Now he's only winning them 57-43. And then of course I am rounding there. By income, same deal. Let's compare, because this is a big deal. You're not going to see these. This all tells us, because I responded to Sean on Twitter the other day, because it's like, amen. There is no way Trump's doing this well with non-college voters, 2-year degrees, even better with some people who do have a degree. It's a couple points better here and there. There's no way that can happen on just the back of white voters and not voter. And it can't happen on the backs of voters who are like 45 and above. So you shouldn't be surprised to see him doing better with younger voters, because that's the only way this makes sense. And people are trying to cite those numbers as a reason to push back on them, when in fact, it's the only way it makes sense. They're not in a vacuum, these demographics. They overlap with each other. Less than 30,000 in 2020, Biden won 54-46. Biden is now slid, and he's winning them 51.8 to 48.2. In the 30 to 50,000, Biden won pretty easily, actually. He won them 56-43, a 13-point margin. Right now, it's one interview at a 700 almost, just 699 interviews. And yet Biden only got one more than Donald Trump in that group. That is what Ray Texera was trying to warn Democrats about when he went over the CNN poll, which was national in Georgia and in Michigan. He was trying to explain to people that it is this working class group that is still supposed to be a Democratic coalition. He's not sliding among groups that you would expect Trump to win. He's sliding among groups that have been part of the not Biden coalition, the Democratic coalition. All right. The 50 to 100,000, which is a huge chunk of the electorate, 39% in 2020 it was. Biden won them 57-42. This is the big problem for Joe Biden. And we see it everywhere, and we've seen it in every poll. Trump is now winning them 55-45. So what was once a 13-point lead for Joe Biden is now a 10-point lead for Donald Trump. Folks, that's a 23-point swing with the biggest single income demographic in the electorate. Did I say that good enough? Interestingly, they split the $200,000 or more income bracket. That is the only one where Joe Biden made significant improvement. They split it 44-44 in 2020, and now Biden is winning at 66-34. The reason why it's not enough is because they're only about 5% of the electorate. And Trump carries those making 100 to 200,000, 54.4 to 45.6. Something Barnes brings up quite a bit, that Trump is doing much better with these disaffected groups. You can see disabled there. That is a Democratic group. Trump is winning them 57-43. I'm unemployed, but I am not looking. Trump is carrying 60-40. That is a Democratic group. Unemployed and looking, meaning they have not given up on the American dream. A very similar margin for Trump as unemployed not looking, 59-41. Full-time unemployed, Donald Trump's only winning by 2 points. Interesting, right? And then part-time workers, Biden is winning 52.7 to 47.3. Those who are retired, and boy, they vote. Trump is winning 51.1 to 48.9, hinting again that Biden is doing well among seniors for a Democrat, for sure. And it's just the way we're in a realignment. We are in a realignment. That's why this evaporation, 200 million vaporized, like Cernovich said when he was criticizing the DeSantis campaign last night. 200 million vaporized. Should have went to getting those other groups registered. Democrats needed to get those groups out in their day when these groups favored them. And that's why Republicans would always sit home hoping and praying for low turnout. But Democrats put the money and they put the effort into it. They did not do what these rhinos and donors are doing. And as you can see there, students still support Joe Biden, 63-37. So it is exactly the type of young working class voter that Barnes and I have been going on and on and on about for the better part of 8 months now. Look at how close union households are. 54.7 to 45.3. When you look by union type, obviously Biden is winning public unions, 57.8 to 42.2, but he is not really winning private. It is 2 points. Well, it's 50, a little bit more. 51.5 to 48.5. That is huge. That's what it looked like when Trump beat Hillary, only actually it was a little closer. This is a little closer. And then if you have both a public or a private union household, meaning you live in a household, whether either you or members of your family, both of you, some of you, maybe your brother is in a public sector union, but you're in a private one, or vice versa, or whatever, kind of mix it up. It is a dual union household. Trump is actually winning double union households, 53.1 to 46.9. Sound the crazy alarm, because that is not the case. Biden won union households, the yes question. He won them by 16 points in 2020. Now he slipped 6 points among them. The no, which is about 80%, and by the way, we're dead on here. Very close. We actually even gave union households more than they typically are. 80-20 is what it usually is in the electorate. Trump only won no by 1 point, 50-49. Now he's winning them 52.5 to 47.5. So he's improved among those, twice outside the margin of error. Twice. All right, let's go to age. Let's do both so we can talk about this. Biden's doing better with women, but actually it's about even. And Trump is beating Biden with men, even though Biden is doing a little bit better than I would have expected him to do with men. It does look like the Fox News poll a little bit where like both are like a little bit close. I would expect Trump to do better than with men than we have it, within reason. I don't think we're way off that much at all, but within reason. And then I would expect Biden to do a little bit better with women than we have it, again, within reason. I do think at this point, you cannot get the leads that Donald Trump has unless you are essentially tying it up with women. You're just not going to win men by that much more. Maybe you're down 2-4 with women. Maybe you're up a point. Maybe you're tied, which we haven't seen that since Herbert Walker Bush lost women by, I think, 3 points, something like that. Maybe 4, and Ronald Reagan tied and then won them once. All right, so here we have the 18 to 29 category, which the New York Times had Trump +6. We have it Biden +6. Stay tuned. We're going to show you details. All right. Let's just continue with our comparisons. I know this is kind of tedious, but I think it's important. Biden won the 18 to 29-year-old category 60 to 36. So don't tell me that Trump is not gaining with this group. And by the way, we had 60-34 or something in our final poll in 2020. So, and again, we're going to show you who voted in 2020, who didn't. These are people who are like, will just tell you, I voted for Joe Biden. It is certainly helping that the new voter is more pro-Trump. Certainly. But that's not all that's going on here. All right, the 30 to 44, Biden won by 6. He is now down by 0.2 of a percentage point. 45 to 64, Trump won by a single point, 50 to 49. Trump is now winning them 54.8 to 45.2. And then the 65 plus, the New York Times had Biden winning seniors. Trump won them 52-47. Even though, by the way, Biden was winning seniors in the final 2020 New York Times poll as well, and he was winning them pretty significantly. We have it about tied here. That makes me feel pretty good. I'm good with that. It's like the exact opposite of the 34 to 44 crowd. Why? Because let's say Biden does a little bit better with 30 to 44s, then we're polling it. Trump does a little better with the 65 pluses, then we're polling it. I would strongly suggest the New York Times check their 65 to 74 and 75 plus. Do I think that Biden is doing well with seniors for a Democrat? I do. Absolutely. And I think Democrats have been doing better with seniors in recent elections. There's no doubt about that. However, it's important to note again, we had him weak with seniors in 2020. He outperformed with them. He did. And the New York Times had Biden outright beating him with seniors, and he did not. Trump wound up carrying the 65 plus by 5 points. If we break it down, we can see the 18 to 24 is 53.3 to 46.7. Incredible. 25 to 29, not much different. Incredible. 30 to 39, Trump starts to take the lead. This doesn't happen. Again, Trump did well with the 30 to 39 crowd. He did well with the 25 to 29 crowd for a Republican. Biden carried the 18 to 24, 65 to 31. He now only has a 53 to 47 lead. Huge swing. 25 to 29, Biden carried 54 to 43. He is now only carrying them 52 to 48. Not good for Joe Biden. 30 to 39, Biden carried 51-46. So you can see how, again, I say this all the time, because Trump lost, quote unquote, we don't talk about some of this. It was very clear and plain as day that Trump was doing better and his coalition was becoming younger. This time, Trump actually has the 51. Biden has the 49. It's a complete reversal. And then you have, it's really like an increase of 5 points for Trump and a decrease of 2 points for Biden. The 40 to 49 crowd, Biden won 54 to 44. Trump now leads 52 to 48. And I'm rounding here in the interest of time because we hit 2 o'clock already. 50 to 64, Trump only won them by 5. 52 to 47, he is now winning them 55 to 46. All right. And then the 65 or older, which was 22% of the electorate, basically what we have combined, Trump won them both 52 to 47. All right. As you can see here, super seniors are 56-44 Biden. They're the smaller group, though. And Trump is winning the 65 to 74, which is the larger group. They're more than twice as large as the super senior. Trump is winning them 52.3 to 47.7. All right. Interesting. If we combine them, then we see that Trump and Biden are basically tied. All right. So there we have it. I know we're at 2 o'clock. I do just want to show this. Again, Biden is helped by the likely voter model. Not enough to put him in the lead in our poll, but enough to cut what? Let me do it in my head. 1 point something off of Trump's lead, that's 6. That's 2.6. So it's enough. Yeah. It's enough to cut 1.4, was like 1.2 off his lead then. So, but again, wouldn't be enough. What else? I voted in the 2020 midterm. I voted in the 2020 election. Trump has a hair of a lead, but he's got a blowout lead with people who did not and are first-time voters. 22 election. Trump didn't do that well, but I did not vote in 22. He's leading by almost 20 points. What about 16? I voted in 16. Trump would have beat Hillary Clinton here in this scenario, or at least if the same margins. He's up by 0.6 of a percentage point among those who did vote in 16, but among those who did not, he's got about a 8-point lead. The 2020 presidential vote, Trump is keeping much more of his vote than Biden. You can see that. This is when you give no other choice. Here's the deal. If they said they voted for Joe Jorgensen, Biden's winning them. But that's a smaller group in our poll than the someone else. All right, let me explain to you what's happening here. Trump is already winning more people than Joe. Listen, if you voted for Donald Trump, you are less likely to now be voting for Joe Biden than the group of people who voted for Joe Biden who are now voting for Donald Trump. You can see there are a lot more. Look, these are Biden voters going for Trump now. These are Trump voters going for Biden. Trump is winning that crossover vote by it's 3 points, but when you look at the raw, it's significant. All right. The Joe Jorgensen number is about right as far as the percentage of people who said they voted for Joe Jorgensen. The someone else is not. What I'm telling you is these are liars. These are only people who voted in 2020. Just remember that. Many of them are lying. And they're telling us, all pollsters, that they voted for someone else when they did not and could not have. Many of them are full of crap. And then the rest are people who voted for like Don Blankenship, Dollar whatever. And Trump is winning them by 20 points. That's roughly the margin we saw for Biden in 2020 with those groups. By area type, the rural-urban coalition continues. Trump is ahead in the suburbs by about 4 points. That is a little bit better than he did in 2020, but not much. The rural vote is roughly on par. He was outpacing Republicans. It is how well he's doing in urban America, even when you don't give them another choice and you make them decide. Again, with Biden approval, this is the difference between him and Republicans. Among those who somewhat disapprove, Donald Trump is carrying them by 10. Republicans in 22 lost the somewhat disapproved group. They won the strongly disapproved by this kind of a margin. But that's it. When you look at who is undecided with Joe Biden's approval rating, Biden does a little bit better, but you're talking about a very small percentage of the population. Trump is even carrying 15% of those who say they somewhat approve, 10% of those who strongly approve, only 6.5% of those who strongly disapprove voting for Joe Biden, only 45% of those who somewhat disapprove. This is the category, man. Somewhat disapprove. That's it. That's where Republicans fell shy in 22, if you believe that it was straight up exit poll issue, and that's it. Let me just show you this real quick. Republican candidate support. I know it's 205. Bear with me, guys. And let's go to the Republican nomination. I would write in it's 30% now overall for Republicans. Why? Who's it coming from? Nobody else, basically, but Donald Trump. Nikki Haley does have a bunch of turncoats. That's the 7% who flip in that one we were just showing. Ron DeSantis now has some never Trump as well. But for the most part, Ron DeSantis's voters will still vote for Donald Trump. And you can see that right there. Honestly, that's a good thing. If you're a DeSantis person, you don't want to be seen as a turncoat. But at the same time, it's a bad thing for you in the primary because they'll abandon you. Whereas that is not the case for Donald Trump. This is a Trump or bust vote. When we started this, folks, the I would not vote at all, the I'll write somebody in, we were talking about like 12%, 13%, and then we got to 15, then we got to like 19, 18, 19. This is insane. 39.7% of Trump's primary vote say I will write his name on the ballot. I would not vote at all is 4%. So put aside what, again, to address what DeSantis had said in the video that I played and everything before, you will lose. End of story. You cannot win with numbers like that. I don't care what it says when a pollster makes somebody lean for Nikki Haley and nobody knows who the hell Nikki Haley is. They just know they're not particularly fond of Joe Biden at the moment, so they pick Nikki Haley and it looks like she's got a lead. That is not real. We hear a lot about mirages this year. Well, guess what, Chris? That's a mirage. Nikki Haley's polling is a mirage, and it's already one that is beginning to fade because, as you can see, Harvard Harris, Emerson, Alton showed her down. Show her down now. Only some of the media polls, the Murdoch inks, they're clinging to it. And of course, the New York Times would love for you to nominate Nikki Haley. Republicans, they would love that. Because they know Dave Paleogos at USA Today, who polls for USA Today over at Suffolk University. He knows the people who the Beacon poll. They know anyone who's looked at the Trump or bust vote knows that this is real. And you simply can't afford to lose that kind of vote. Even if I'm wrong and sampling errors for subgroups are higher, so we make a massive 13% point sampling error or something like that. So what? You got down to what? A third? Between I wouldn't vote or I'll write his name in? And if people who are responding to that on Twitter with, they're just wasting their votes, take your heads out of your butts. They're not doing it because they want to win at that point anymore. They're doing it because they know they've already lost. You get that? I don't think you do. I think you're still in La La Land and you think this is a free country or something, where there's still justice and self-governance. There isn't, and there hasn't been for a long time. And for all of those voters right there, they know that. And they see this as their last chance to try to grab it back. If you don't see that, I sincerely feel sorry for you. And you know who I feel more sorry for than anybody? My children. All right. Don't forget, if you like the video, don't forget to like it. Share it far and wide with your friends. On YouTube, hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But you don't have to do that on Rumble. And we would love for you to mosey on over there and like the videos as well. Also subscribe. Vice versa. Right? Same goes for Rumble users. All of these metrics absolutely help content creators. And of course, the best place to follow us is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. If you're not a member yet, you're not a supporter yet, the link is right in the subscription. Click on it. It'll take you right there. And Locals, by the way, you will be getting the Christmas poll very shortly. As soon as I'm done here, I'm just going to put it together in a nice little bundle, send it over to you on Locals so you can check it out. And we'll all talk about it more on Friday. I will try. There's a lot going on with Christmas and sick people over here. I will try to do a stream Locals so we can go over that together. And, we can have a little bit of a heads up. Either way, you'll be getting it to look through yourself. So don't miss it. In fact, you can't miss it. Like I said, it's a whole lot of Christmas. You will not be able to miss that post. All right. And we'll go over that again as a whole on Friday. So again, the link's in the description. Don't forget to sign up, peoplespundit.locals.com. Thank you to everybody who did share the public polling project this year, far and wide. Even though we're still underfunded, you could see the contributor base growing over time. And I know why it's underfunded. It's underfunded because we got close to the holidays, because the economy is not improving at the rate that everyone had hoped it would and people were saying it was going to. So I totally get that. Moving into the new year, we'll just beat it like a dead horse again and move forward. It's always better when you have a larger contributor base because it means, of course, the burden is less on a smaller group of individuals. All right. So that's why Laura and I, put a lot in, basically put a lot in. All right. So that's it. None but love for you. We'll see you on Friday, everyone. Locals, I'll see you in a little bit. And thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Go sign up to Locals. Go sign up to Locals.